Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Daniel Perez. It is good to be with you guys. We're going to start off this morning, a little trivia.
Oh, good.
We have prizes.
Oh, we have prizes.
If you don't like coffee, you won't like your prize. So, first question. Anybody go to geography here? Yeah. All right.
He's the smart one.
Okay. Point to Indonesia for me, please. I don't
show you where it is?
Yeah.
Can you highlight it? Just northwest of Australia.
You can come up here. I don't know if the laser point works.
It has a button that you push down.
Does
I
it?
think it.
I'm going to push the wrong button and mess everything up.
It's a red one.
Awesome.
Very good.
Swing.
He even included where y'all were.
Get some coffee.
This coffee costs $8,000.
You're allowed home. Here. Thank you so much.
All right, next question. How many islands make up the country of Indonesia? Now, if you've heard us speak before, you should know this because it's go-to. So, anybody want to make a guess without Googling it?
13,987.
I'll write your answer down. 13,982? 87. That's right. All right, any other guesses?
Well, there's 10,000 lakes, right?
You got a 2,000.
2,000, all right. 1,000. 2,482. If you guys would all add at least 10,000 to that, you'd be getting closer. So if that changes your guess at all.
So 20,000.
23,987.
Would you say 20,000? That'll be, I don't know, is it like Price is Right rules? Like if you go over?
Hey Siri, how many islands?
We'll go with 20,000. There's actually 17,508 islands at low tide. All right, last question. What is the majority religion of Indonesia? Muslim. But you gotta raise your hand because I'm supposed to give the coffee. There we go. All right.
Oh, Indonesia?
There you go.
What'd you say?
Muslim, Islam. Yep, it is the most populous Islamic country in the world. So,
Oh, really?
yes. So it's been a while since we've been here, so we'll just kind of give you like a brief overview of who we are. My name is Daniel Perez. My wife Becky, she snuck in a little bit later, and that's our oldest daughter Reese there. Say hi, Reese. So we've been with MAF for just over 10 years and 2 months, something like that.
What is MAF?
So this is taken shortly after we arrived in Indonesia the first time. So this is Joe, and that's Reese there, and that's somebody sent us a Flat Sam or something.
Oh, Flat Stanley.
Flat Stanley, that's it. And so that's who that is. They're not related to us. This was us when we just left not too long ago. So we have Lily Rowley down there. Reese, Peter, who we adopted 2 years ago, and then Joseph, who is, so it's, the twins are 8, Reese is 12, Peter's 4, and Joseph is 10. So that is us. So like Jeremy said, we have been with MAF in Indonesia. We just finished our last term, so we're actually going to be transitioning back to the U.S., and we can talk a little bit more about that later.
There was a question as what was MAF?
I will get to that.
Okay.
I will give you the whole
There you go.
beautiful thing.
Terry.
Massive.
That's why I said
All right. So MAF, if you don't know what it is, it's Mission Aviation Fellowship. It was founded in 1943 by some former World War II aviators who saw the airplane as a great tool to reach some of the isolated areas of the world. I don't know if many of you are familiar with Nate Saint, Jim Elliott. Nate Saint was actually, one of them was MAF pilot, and they were martyred in Ecuador. So that's part of MAF's history. MAF exists to share the love of Jesus Christ through aviation and technology, so that isolated people may be physically and spiritually transformed. MAF is mostly airplanes. That's all I really dealt with. But MAF does do Some other things, IT work is getting to be pretty big in today's world. Teachers, we love teachers. Teachers are vital to missions, I believe. And then as well as tech resources that they do, stuff for a lot of like the closed countries, ways to get Bible studies, Bibles, and that sort of thing into closed countries. So this is Betty Green. She was the first MAF pilot in front of a Wacko airplane that she flew. She flew all over the world. Mexico was, I believe, the first place, but she actually flew also where we were in Papua. So it was always kind of fun to hear stories about her.
What year was that, do you think?
Probably 45-ish, I believe, is when they did their first flight. And so these are the Nate Saint here and Jim Elliott. Currently, MAF Worldwide, there's MAF US, and then there's also like MAF Australia, MAF Netherlands, and we all work pretty well together. We had a lot of MAF Netherlands people on loan to us. But MAF Worldwide is currently in 37 countries, 131 aircraft, over 2,000 different organizations served. And that was in 2018, 56,427 landings.
Is that annual?
That's probably 2,000 of those are mine. So just we're going to kind of hit some highlights of this last term. So I had been flying in Papua for 8 years, and every day I would fly over this terrain. I think, man, that is beautiful. Like, it is just incredibly beautiful, but incredibly rugged terrain. And so I thought, well, I always thought it'd be fun to hike it, right? Because it always looks fun from above. But after speaking with a German missionary that I dropped off in a village one day, he was telling me about the trail to this village that the gospel came in on, and the missionaries when they first came in, and they're actually celebrating the anniversary of that. I think it had been 50 years. This is a monument in that village that was built commemorating that. This was built many years later. And it says, this is the road that the gospel entered into the valley 24th, March 1963. And this is Post KKI, that's the denomination there. Pronkoli is the name of the village, and then the area is Siwikma. And they actually, the two missionaries came back and they took imprints of their feet there. They have a deep respect for church history in their area, and they commemorate a lot of things, and it's pretty neat to see. So I kind of got my brain thinking, well, let's hike it. Like, these guys did it, in '63. Couldn't be that hard, right? And so me and one of my friends from college, he's also an MAF pilot there. He loves that kind of stuff, so we did it. We flew in. They came into the valley. We decided to hike home, just in case we were late. We didn't have to wait for an airplane. So one of our friends flew us in, dropped us off. This was about 20 minutes into our hike.
Wow.
And it's just raging rivers with these log paths. He's pointing, okay, we've been hiking at this point about 3 hours. That's the airstrip. Like, right there is where we left.
Wow.
And at this point...
3 hours?
Yes. At this point, I'm turning around because this is not going to end well. And so we had a local pastor found us 2 guides to come with us just to show us how to get there. And a lot of people started out with us just because they said nobody had done this since 81, I think. No pilot had hiked it. So they were all pretty excited and followed us for a little while. So this is us getting close to the top with the remnant that's left. The first couple miles, I say flat, not flat, very undulating, but no real vertical rise. And then we had to go up about 10,000 feet to get over the ridge.
Is that barefoot?
Yes, they're mostly all barefoot. So this was our camp the first night. We just brought a tarp along. And so we're above 10,000 feet, so it is cold and it's very wet. And these guys, they stayed up all night just sitting around the fire, like just chattering. I was in a nice sleeping bag. That's pretty warm. So there's just some pictures from the scenery. This was the first day. There's some pretty steep cliffs, and so they've built these ladders, if you want to call them that we went up. It rains every day there, so everything's slippery, like mossy. And like we're about halfway through the day, they said, if you don't give us your backpacks, we're not going to make it. And so they took our bags and just let us walk without them. And so these guys are going up this with backpacks, and just incredible. I thought I was going to die a few times. The thing that impressed me the most, I fly this village pretty regularly. We met no less than 6 groups of ladies going back to their village where we had just come from. And these ladies one of them had like a 50-pound bag of rice in her bag, kids, little kids, babies, pigs that they were taking back. So they would hike, or sometimes fly out or hike out, depending on how much money they had. And then they were hiking back in. And they were just so excited to see us, and they would get mad initially at our guide, saying, "Why are you bringing them here? Why aren't they flying?" And then they had to explain things. So it really, for me, like, people appreciate the airplane, but until you've like actually set your feet and walked those trails, like, you cannot imagine the difference that it makes to have the airplane. I think about somebody injured or sick that's trying to get out. It's really not possible. And I asked them, how often do people die on the trail of just falling? They said, it happens a couple times a year. So it kind of really sunk in for me how valuable the airplane is there. Another highlight for us, you've probably heard about, or if you get our newsletters, read about a village called Bina. We went to language school with 4, it was New Tribes then, I guess it's Ethnos 360 now, 4 New Tribes families who were coming to Papua, and got to be pretty good friends with them over the years. There's a village called Bina, it's the Dim people, who heard about 25 years ago that if they build an airstrip, they'll get missionaries to come tell them, share the gospel with them. And so they built an airstrip and sat around waiting for 20 years before these 4 families decided to move in here. So we have a pretty long relationship with them. This is me and my son Joe, who's 10 now. We went in for a long weekend to help build one of the family's houses, and got to spend some time there with them. And our family over the years has continued to go back. I would fly there pretty regularly, either just supplies or actually get to fly them in and out. So we've had a few bit of experiences there with them, and have gotten to love them, honestly. They're sweet families. So this past year, they have finished learning the local language. It's not a real common language. There's about 190 different people groups within Indonesia, and probably 100 different languages. And so this is a language they wanted to learn. It has not been written down. They just all had to go in and listen and learn, and they would find language helpers. Ethnos 360 is very good about making sure that your language is at a certain level before you share the gospel, because it's important that you're communicating clearly. And so they've spent many, many years learning the Dim language. This is just another picture with them and their families. There's 4 families there. 3 are there right now. 1 is on furlough. So this past year, they completed their language evaluations, and Ethnos 360 said, yes, you're good. You can start working on sharing the gospel. So what they do first, is they all come out to town, and they'll do like a workshop, and they'll sit down and work on different literacy books, because they want to teach them to read first. And so this is them in town. I think it's about 6 weeks that they spend working with other language consultants. They'll bring out local language speakers to read over stuff and say, does this make sense? It's very, very thorough. And so they spent about 6 weeks doing that, and then a team came in from one of these families' churches and started construction on a schoolhouse there in the village. So they built a schoolhouse, and then I think just in the last month or so, 2 months, they actually started teaching literacy classes. So this is like step 1 before they'll share the gospel. And so this has been really neat to see this process, to walk alongside them and get to serve them. we did quite a few medical evacuations. I remember one specifically, it was 2015, just before Christmas. There was a lady who was pregnant with twins, gave birth to one twin. The second twin wasn't coming. And so what they do is they'll put the first baby in a cold river or a creek, and they think that will make the second baby come. So the families called me or emailed me and asked me if I could come get them and bring them out to town. And so I did. I couldn't find the picture. One of my phones got stolen, so I lost a lot of pictures. But so it did fly them out. I think she had a C-section for the second one. I don't remember. But the second baby was delivered and was healthy. And so we were back in there just in February. Oh, no. Let me see here. We're just going to scan real quick.
Oh, no, it was back. There was one of me and the baby. Okay. Like you already went through.
So we were back in there, and this lady doesn't live real close to the village. It's about an hour hike from the airstrip. But she came up to see us. And so this is one of the babies there. The other one.
The boy with the red shirt on the left, that's
one of
him now.
Okay.
There's twin boys.
Yeah.
And then the baby I'm holding is now the mom's third baby who was just born.
Wow.
So to think now that because MF was there to help save this baby's life, it's going to be there and be able to hear the gospel is a pretty neat thing for us. So those are just a couple of our highlights. Yes.
So these families who came here, they wrote down the language?
Yes.
Okay, so they're the first ones to do that then, okay.
Yeah, so they write down the language, and they actually use, if I'm not mistaken, they'll use a portion of the Bible like in their literacy classes. But they want to be able to read because they'll teach the Bible chronologically, and they'll have lessons for each one of those. And when they actually start that, it takes a month, I believe, and people will just come every day and sit and listen as they just teach chronologically from Genesis up through the resurrection. So we've seen a couple villages that have done that, and it's a neat thing. So Becky has been staying busy this last term as well, and I will let her come talk a little bit about that. I'll just sit here and look pretty.
Yeah, thank you for having us again. I'm sure you already said that. My expectation when I moved overseas was that I have a nursing background, and so I thought I would be in the streets of Indonesia healing all the children and bringing them medicine and just this beautiful picture. What actually happened was that I was in my kitchen most of the time. Cooking from scratch. I mean, you can buy the basics at the little shop we have in our town. You can buy flour, you can buy rice, you can buy veggies, but that's, just the basics. So kind of creating everything. And as we got more kids and a bigger family, and Daniel was actually really busy, kind of a normal job. He was gone 5 days a week, flying all day. So really, I just ran the house, which actually wasn't terrible. I mean, I was fine with that. Some days, as all of you know, it just can get mundane. But I did get to do some fun things during our time there, which one of them was teaching PE to the missionary school that my kids went to. And I did that probably for 4 years or so. I took a break and we had Peter. But last year was probably just the most fun I've had with it. I don't know why, but it just seemed to all come together. So I had 2 classes, one younger class and one older class, and it was the international school there that my kids went to. And there was probably 4 or 5 different nationality of kids. We had Indonesian, Canadian, American, Dutch. Do we have any German kids?
Yes.
We had some European, Swiss, off and on through the years. We had all different. So it was really fun to teach them American football, and they would be like, "What on earth is American football?" Or me teaching them soccer. All the European and Indonesian kids know everything about it. So I'm like, "Okay, you're going to be my helper because I don't know anything about this." One of our older Dutch kids really did a lot of it. So that was really fun. How do I work this? Back. We did that was a younger class. We did just a lot of fun games, and then I try to teach them a sport. Every month we do a different sport. So it was really fun.
And that was she did that just on our base there, which is a short walk from the school.
Yeah, and our house is actually, that's our house in the background. Another thing, I was off and on a part of a ladies' Bible study, and I talk with the lady on the right in glasses. She's part of a ministry called Paraclete, and they come alongside other organizations to serve them in different ways, and she was like a spiritual director, she'd call it, and I kind of called it like a mentor. So we'd talk once a month for years and years, and it was really valuable. So she wanted to come do a retreat with us. I don't know if you've ever heard of Thrive. They have like these, you've heard of that, like international women, global worker kind of retreats. Well, she had done some of those, and she wanted to do like a mini one with our missionary women in our town, which is not that many women, like 20 women. Well, that's kind of a lot, but so we organized this retreat. I've never done anything like that. I'm not wanting to do that kind of thing, but here I am doing it. And at the time, I wasn't even going to the Bible study just because of my schedule. And so this is my mother-in-law, Daniel's mom. She came.
Yes.
Valerie.
Yeah, Valerie.
Yes.
A lot of you probably know her.
Love her.
And then this is her friend, and this was a music person. And then this was she is a former MAF missionary and lives at the town like an hour flight from us. And of course, Linda, who was kind of the leader of it all. So I organized this retreat a weekend, and it was really awesome with the missionary ladies. We had, again, like so many nationalities there. We had an Indonesian lady who works with MAF, who like lives there. She's a national. She came, and mostly we didn't have like a lot of nationals because it was English, an English retreat or whatever. But it was really neat how God asked me to do something that I really was like never thought of, and I didn't feel equipped to, but really just kind of like landed on my lap. And so it's kind of like, you do what you want to do, I'm just here. And it was tricky because like the food, like going, like this lady in white did the food. So she lives in Washington State. She's got beautiful grocery stores. And I'm like, okay, here's your options, you know? So she was really flexible, and it worked out okay. And yeah, it was fun. So the third thing, that's us making jewelry. Valerie, my mother-in-law, brought this huge kit of jewelry. It was so fun to like just play with that stuff. And that's us. And one of the missionary ladies has this beautiful home, and so she hosted us there because it was an overnight thing. And that's the whole group.
Awesome.
Yeah. So these are pilots' wives. These are teachers. These are tribal. Some of the tribal missionaries were in our town for a year because they were having unrest in their tribe. So they were there. There were some national in the middle. Teachers, I said that already. Yeah. Okay, and the third, probably my very favorite thing, actually, I hope I don't cry, was I got to be the Bible study leader for the middle school girls in our community. And I usually run around our little base. It's like really short, but I run, and really God tells me a lot of stuff while not like out loud or anything crazy, but just in my heart. And he kept telling me, this was now 2 summers ago, you need to lead the middle school girls Bible study. I was like, nope, that's not for me. And not because I don't like them, because I feel really inadequate. I never went to Bible school. I was raised Catholic. I'm just, a mom. I'm not a missionary kid. I'm not a pastor's kid, whatever, all these things. And these girls, they're pastor kids, missionary kids, tribal. They've lived in tribes their whole life, watching their dads share the gospel. I'm just like, this is not for me. So I probably send 3 or 4 emails to the community. I'm thinking of this. Who wants to do it? Who can do it? And like, I would literally grab people like, are you interested in leading the middle school? No, nobody wanted to. And I knew I was doing it. I knew it was me, but I was desperately trying to find somebody who was way more qualified than me. So all that to say is that, yeah, God used my way inadequacy to do awesome things in this group. Reese was a part of it. It was so fun. I can't look at her. It was so fun to see these girls like come together, because it was 6th grade through like 10th grade, I think. So a lot of different ages. We went through a Bible study together, and we did a girls' retreat as well. So we had like a night away. Did fun. Oh, there's a picture of that. Oh, this is actually at the retreat. Yeah, and that's another. And I had some other moms come in and do devotionals, and we had another mom do guitar and crazy games, and there's another picture. And Daniel came in like this giant dinosaur costume and scared everyone. And so that was a joy. And I bring that up, to really say, if God is, God wants you to do something in your heart, and you feel like you cannot do it. I'm here to say, well, it's really about him, honestly. He'll do what he wants to do. You just kind of have to show up. And that's literally what I did. I showed up and I said, come to my house at this time every week and we'll see what God does. And it kind of worked out really cool because every one of these young ladies was going through a big transition in their life. A lot of them were moving to a different town or moving out of the village where they lived, or we were coming back to the States. Some others have a plan in a year to come back to their home country. So it was just cool to see them open up in a really trusting environment. And they really challenged me too, just with our Bible studies and stuff. So, it was just a huge joy to do that, and it was really fun. So, is that all I'm talking about?
Sure, unless you have.
What?
He said you were going to do an hour and a half.
Oh my gosh. I think I'm done.
Oh, well, one other thing I'll say is, did you talk about this yet?
No.
Can I do this now?
Yeah.
Okay. So we always want to bring something from where we live. And this was our little snack we always had, a Bang Bang. It's a little chocolate bar. So I wanted to pass them out, and hopefully there's enough I have another.
It's gluten-free, non-GMO.
And I don't know if he told you, our town is the fly-in only. All our supplies are flown in. And so sometimes our stuff sits for a while. All the eggs, we had chickens, but the eggs were always rotten by the time they got to us. So this, in my shop, could have been sitting for a while, plus it's been 3 months in America. So if they're a little bit...
They're still good.
They're really solid.
If they're a little bit,
That is so funny.
or maybe they're just like that, and we love them.
So is this the lunch that was going
Yeah, that's it.
This is our lunch, yeah, me.
You can use it for communion too.
Our kids love them. I love them too, but yeah, just always a little snack after school or whatever they would have.
You didn't get one, or if you want one more after.
Yeah, you can put them on the chair or something. So.
What does it say on the bottle?
It says wafer, caramel, crispy chocolate.
Police in.
Yes.
When you were hiking and you said how cold it was, and then in some of the pictures she's got the kids are all out in shorts. Was the island a different elevation?
Yeah. Yeah, so there's hey, class, please. You can't give them sugar right in the middle. I'll answer your question in a second. All right, so there was a question just about the climate of our.
All right, guys,
we got some teachers in here. All right, so there's a question about the climate where we were. So the island goes from sea level to 14,000 feet plus. So on the coast, very hot. It was a little bit south of the equator, hot and humid, like it is outside. Where we were just over 5,000 feet in a valley between some mountains, and so our climate was actually very nice. So 70s in the morning, mid to upper 80s in the afternoon. With usually it would rain every afternoon. If it didn't, we collected all our water from rain in a giant cistern. So if it didn't rain for 2 weeks, we started to get nervous because we would run out occasionally. So up to this point, any questions about whatever? I'll talk a little bit about what's next for us in a sec. Yes, let's go back.
I had a question. Do you ever receive criticism from outsiders about bringing the gospel and ruining people's native culture and all of that?
Nobody's ever talked to me. I mean, I've obviously read that. I think probably one of the things that the gospel has brought with it has been healthcare. Missionaries are very willing to care for the entire body. So I flew a missionary in who had been there back in the 60s, late 60s, and hadn't been back in years. And I took her into the village where she had been. And she said the thing that stuck out to her is that people had gray hair. And there were babies. And it just wasn't like that before. People did not live very long. There was a high infant mortality rate. It still is. I mean, it's still definitely not easy. Another pastor I know who visited Papua frequently, through a translator, was speaking with a tribal elder and said, what has the gospel changed for you guys? And the guy looked at him and said, we don't eat people anymore. I mean, it's very true. Like, up until 30, 40 years ago, they were eating each other. Like, there's one village we flew to, the name of it was Apahapsali, which literally means a place where we remove man's skin to eat him. And that was what they lived. They lived in fear. They lived warring constantly. There was never forgiveness. There was never peace. It was just war after war after war. And a lot of that lingers today. I mean, it's still a very sinful nature that every one of us battles. But it is a marked difference from what it was before the gospel came to that place. So, yeah. Yes?
Okay, back to geography.
You've seen the extent of my geography.
Well, okay, so you probably know I went to Moody, probably a little bit before you. So I also drive excellent people to and from the airport. So this one guy I had this past week, he was, I think, on his way back from Papua New Guinea, which is the eastern half of the island. Okay.
Right.
So we were talking about that. I said, well, what's the western side? I couldn't remember what the western side was called, because when I was at Moody, we heard Don Richardson, who went there, and it was called Irian Jaya at that time. So that was the western side of the island?
Well, the whole island is Irian Jaya.
Okay, what does that mean? What does that mean?
The actual word? Or?
Yeah, the actual word.
I don't know.
Okay. So,
I guess I should have made something up. No. So yes, a lot of people, when we say, oh, we're from Papua, they go Papua New Guinea. And we usually smile and nod because it's a long explanation. But yes, so the island itself is called Irian Jaya, and it is split in half. So the Papua New Guinea is on the eastern side, and Papua Indonesia is on the western side. It's just an arbitrary line.
Is that what it's called now? That's my question. It's called, the western half is called Papua Indonesia?
Papua Indonesia, yeah.
Okay.
And so right now, currently in Papua, there's significant civil unrest. I mean, they're burning government buildings, people are getting killed because Indonesia took over. Papua was a Dutch colony, like much of Indonesia, and I believe on the Papua New Guinea was Australia. But Papua New Guinea received their freedom quite a while ago and are their own country. Papua Indonesia, the native people there share very little culture. They do not look like the rest of Indonesia, and so they very much want their freedom from Indonesia. They want to be their own country. Indonesia does not want to release them for several reasons. One of them being Papua has the largest gold and copper mine in the world.
Yes, they do.
And so it is a significant source of resources for Indonesia. And so there's constant fighting about that, but right now it's gotten pretty bad. So you can definitely be praying for peace there. The government tends to, when this happens, they'll shut off the internet and the cell service, just so that the protesters can't coordinate. And so we get little tidbits here and there from our friends still there, and I think it's calmed down a little bit the last day or two, but it's a constant struggle there.
So the green laws.
Other side of the border. I can see Papua New Guinea from my plane. We never made it over there because it's not that easy, but yeah. So culturally very similar. We met with some friends who is a helicopter pilot for FNOS 360. We met them on vacation once, and they were amazed at the difference and just how rich people were from one country to the other. In Papua Indonesia, extremely wealthy. They get money from the government from the gold mine, and I mean, there's a Hummer in town. There is like these Jeep 4-door Wranglers in town. So a lot of money.
But I saw a documentary on that where if any, most of them are children, they try to get into the mine and get the gold and then come out, but they get shot.
Security is crazy.
Yes. So, and our guys were like, why would you do that? You could get killed. But they didn't care.
Yeah.
They wanted the gold.
Yep, it is. So the tailings come down out through one of the towns in a river there, and you'll see people out there trying to find stuff to list. I mean, we flew over it, and it is miles and miles and miles from anything. But they have built a city up there, and money is no object. It's owned by Freeport-McMoRan. Actually, I think Indonesia owns 51% of it, but Freeport runs things. Incredible amount of money, and so Indonesia holds pretty tightly to that. So,
why don't you share some of the history of your family, your dad, Philip,
Sure.
sister?
So I grew up here, like literally like born in Cyprus. My parents came to this church since I was a baby, and so my dad was always my dad is from Mexico, my mom is from Washington State, and so very kind of international. My dad worked in Central and South America quite a bit, and so a pretty international perspective in our home, and very, very missions-minded, which is quite a bit of Cyprus's history, I think. And so my dad was part of the missions committee here at Cyprus for many years. And so we had missionaries coming through our house often. And so that was neat for me as a kid to see that. It kind of sparked my interest in missions. In high school, in the youth group here, went on a mission trip and kind of felt the Lord calling me to missions. I didn't really see or know how that would play out because I didn't like to study. So I didn't see myself doing like Bible translation or even being a pastor. But I loved anything mechanical, anything with wheels on it. And so found out about Mission Aviation Fellowship and Moody. Moody Bible Institute has an aviation program. So I applied to that. That was the only college I applied to and somehow got in. And so, yeah, the rest is history.
And then what about you and I? How did y'all meet?
So Becky, she grew up here, Catholic, in the area. She graduated from Sci Fair. Nobody's going to yell BFND. Come on, guys.
Go fair. Never dies.
So she got invited to the youth group here at Cyprus when she was in high school and got saved here. And we met in high school and went to senior prom together.
Wow.
Got married. Been married 16 years and change. So, yeah.
I want to let you know that I went to your mom's house and we prayed for all the kids, all your parents' kids. And I'm glad that God's answering the prayers. Yeah.
And Jose, your dad, was
Yes.
very instrumental in Spanish church.
That's right.
Yeah.
Very instrumental.
Very busy with that.
And I've been to Cuba 4 times. Gary Climber.
Yeah, it is. It's a rich history that Cyprus has here with missions, and it's neat to be a part of that.
And Philip?
Did you ever see or have interaction with anybody from Global Recording Network?
Yes,
that they have?
we did. So we actually, when we got back from furlough, I think it was from furlough, in 2017, there were 2 Indian gentlemen, not Native American, but actual from India. They're doing recordings of some of the gospel there. They were doing Ibile, the language there. And so they actually stayed on our base and recorded there for a couple months. And I think they're back there now in western Papua doing more recordings.
Kids, in Southern California, we used to go up to headquarters once a month at church and we pressed records. They had these old bonettes that you would turn and leave, then later they went to cassettes. Back then they were called gospel recordings.
Yeah, it's a neat ministry. It was fun to help them out. Yes?
Yeah, I would work through Wycliffe. I went for a summer to Oaxaca. And the flight, of course, they come in and out, and it was probably a little more people, population-wise, in the area I was in. It's called Yaitepec.
Okay.
And I was also a nurse. And I really had to do some things I never expected.
Yeah, I bet.
This guy got kicked in the head, and clean it and stitch him up. At least he was so drunk that he maybe he felt about it is fantastic.
Yeah.
And I had to send some kids back, you know, with them. And then they also took us to, another friend of mine was in another village, and we got together and went around and did DPT shots.
Huh.
Because all the Americans had come in and with their diseases. It was a wonderful experience.
Yes.
Your brother Philip,
Yes.
can you tell us about him?
He is a doctor. He's a
Harvard, right?
He did go to Harvard, and now he's doing a fellowship for he's an ENT. So yeah, he's in Pittsburgh now.
Teacher when he was 5.
There's another hand over here. Yes.
What was y'all's most surprising or unexpected thing about the whole experience?
Wow. Do you have something on top of your head?
Well, when we were planning to go, it was like all these unknowns, like, will the kids be okay? Will there be a school for them? What if they get sick? And like people would ask us these things, well, what are you going to do if this happens? And it was almost like, you know, you don't have this figured out, do you? And I was really scared, like wanted to go, but part of me was really scared. And then when we decided it was time to come back, I had those same feelings about coming back.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what about the kids' school? Are they going to be okay? You know, what are we going to do? And like, it just gave me a lot of perspective. Like when God asks you to step out in faith and you don't have the answers, He's got it. And like just looking from the other way of going from there to here, it sounds foolish to say, well, are the kids going to be okay? Of course, there's tons of opportunities. It's America, right? But no, I mean, it's not about where you're going or what He asks you to do. It's really just about trusting Him. And finally, I learned that, I guess, after you know, being with MAF 10 years. Still learning it, obviously, but that was a big surprise.
So what are y'all going to do now?
Yeah, so I think I have one more picture. This was actually my last flight in Papua. So this is raw.
It was really hard for us to leave. Like it actually really broke our hearts and all of our kids to leave. So we're still super grieving the process. Not that we think it was a mistake to leave, like we still see where God was saying, I'm going to close the door on this right now, and you need to move on, and I'm still going to use you, but like that is our home. And we learned this summer that you can have a paradox. You can say, I love this place, it was beautiful and wonderful, and yet I hated this part about it, and it was so hard, and I can't believe we had to do that. It's like, I think that's kind of where we're at. It's just like, we love it so much, and it was so hard. So like some things are a relief. Like the school our kids went to was struggling. Now it actually closed down the junior high part of it. So now there's only 1st through 5th. So Joe would be able to go one more year. Reese would have had to have been homeschooled, which
they're doing his class there.
Okay.
I told you, it's not from school.
Well, all the parents are getting together to do like a co-op thing, and they are using one of the classrooms at the school. But so like that was that's part of it. So we can see God like, you know, providing in that way now that we're back, but it's still hard. So
So y'all are back for good?
Yes, yep. So we moved back. When we left, we actually owned a house here, and it was in 2008. So like everything had like tanked pretty well, and so we didn't even try and sell it. We ended up just renting it out, which ended up being a huge blessing. So we're back in there. We bought the house when it was just Becky and I, so we're cozy. But we have a home, which was a huge blessing to not have to think about that. So our youngest 4 go to Woodard Elementary over off Barker Cypress, which is, they had their first week this last week, which has been pretty good overall. They went from like a class the size of the whole school to this, so. I will be starting work. We're with MAF officially until Friday, and then I start work Monday for a company called ExpressJet. They fly for United Express, so I'm going to the airlines. I'm excited professionally. I think it'll be, bigger, faster. It'll be fun, but it'll definitely be a change for our home life. Having to be gone. It was nice there. I started early. We'd try and take off by first light, so 5:30. But then I could get home usually by 2, which was really nice. So it'll be a little bit different, but yeah, we'll see what God has for us this next chapter. So yeah, any other questions? Yes.
When you were flying, were you flying sick people or
everything? We would have usually just scheduled flights, which could be either cargo, so food, construction materials, or people, or sometimes a mix. And so we would schedule that out for the whole week, usually 4 flights a day. And we usually had 3 to 4 planes on our base flying. But we would get reports in. We had a high-frequency radio system set up throughout the island, so the villages could call to give us weather reports or to let us know if there was a patient. And so we usually get those calls at least a few a week, where they'd say somebody fell out of a tree or somebody got attacked with a machete or whatever. And so we would adjust the schedule for that day. Or if we were coming back from somewhere nearby, we'd swing through and pick them up. So yeah, the medevacs were rarely scheduled. It was always they just pop up. But that was one of our top priorities, and so we try to get those done. Yes.
Did you fly just on the big island, or did you go out to little islands?
Yeah, so we never left the island unless there was a very rare occasion where somebody needed to go to Australia for medical care. So from our base, MAF had 5 bases on the island, all spread out, and our base was up in the mountains, and within 30 minutes of our base, we probably had 60 plus villages that we would fly to. And so we did just do a lot of short flights to these villages. And the hike I did, it took us 3 full days of hiking, and it's a 15-minute flight from where we are. So you think, that many villages, that many airstrips, you really need that? And I will tell you, yes, you do. And you'll see, flying over, you'll see these zinc, tin roofs, on the side of the hill, pretty big. And you just think, man, those people carry that a long ways to have a tin roof. But they're an incredibly tough people. So yeah, we didn't often leave the island, to answer your question. So.
How do you get the fuel in?
So in the past, they may have used a Cessna 206. It was a pretty small 6-person airplane. It ran a piston engine, which means it uses aviation gas, very similar to gasoline but leaded, because we don't care about the environment. No. And so aviation gasoline was very difficult to get because nobody over there really used it except for us. And it ended up costing upwards of $17 a gallon, and you burn about 17 gallons an hour. So MAF went through the process of switching to an all-turbine fleet. So they still have propellers, but they run on jet fuel. So that happened in 2014, 2015. We got rid of our last piston. And so it's jet fuel. And because there's commercial airlines coming into the coast, that is readily available. Where we lived in Wamena, everything was flown in. And so all of our jet fuel would come up in barrels inside of a Boeing 737. Our bill for one average year of flying, this is just to get the fuel from the coast to here. In the Boeing, it was a 25-minute flight, was $300,000 just to get the fuel there. It doesn't even include the cost of fuel. So MAF is very dependent. I don't know if you get their mailing. Sometimes you'll get things about fill up a plane with fuel. It's a significant cost for MAF. There's a lot of commercial operators there that do what we do. On paper, but their rates are crazy. A flight, 20-minute flight on one of their planes would probably cost you $3,000 to $4,000, where we would do it for $400. And that's because we're there. We have support raised. We have donors that pay for the airplanes, pay for the parts, and we're not there to make money. Those guys make pretty good money. So yeah, fuel is always a heavy expense, and we would have to raise our rates. We did charge for flights, but it was always just enough to break even. Like, it was never, people loved to fly MAF because it was that much cheaper, and so we were always booked solid.
If nobody's been on a Piper Cub, you would like to do that sometime. When I went over Mexico, and it's also close to your
Any other questions?
So you did. So the people were paying. There's probably a lot of people that did pro bono, maybe. To get them.
Yeah, like medevacs, we struggled often with the government and regulation, and it made our lives difficult. But to their credit, they started a program where MAF, Wycliffe had planes on the island, and I think one other mission. They gave us an account and said, if you have a sick person and a medical emergency, we'll pay for it. And so that freed us up to, even if we were empty, like Saturday morning, like the plane's empty, they would pay for us to fly, pick them up, and get them out to a hospital. So that was fantastic. But yeah, if it was clear somebody was in bad shape and didn't have money, we'd take them, obviously. So.
And usually, there's such a strong sense of community there that even when I would go with them, I'd see people, chipping in the money for the flight, and I mean, it could be their hard-earned money, or it could be money they got from the government, some kind of bribe to vote for somebody. I don't know. So they made it happen, one way or the other.
Yes.
So you said that Islam is the majority religion there. Obviously, the villages probably don't practice that, did they?
So where we were, they would consider themselves a Christian province, which adds to the conflict that they have with the rest of Indonesia. The gospel came in the 50s. It's still very much mixed with their animism and their traditional religions, but there is a huge migration of normal Indonesians, for the lack of a better word, that are moving to Papua, trying to make money, trying to get land, and so there's quite a few mosques there now, which adds the tension. And at Christmas time, the churches blast Christmas music. It's sort of like retribution for the call to prayer. I don't know, but it's so loud. Yeah, good, solid. What's Feliz Navidad is a popular song. So yeah, the traditional, they would call themselves Christians. The older generation who had the first contact with the missionaries are dying off now. In the 80s, the government kicked out all of the missionaries. We stayed because our visa was not missions, it was aviation. So MAF has been there the whole time, but a lot of the missionaries got kicked out, and so there was a drift of the younger generation, and the church is struggling. So that's you pray for them, because as they wander away, you kind of see them going back to a lot of the old ways of warring, and so yeah, definitely some work to be done in their hearts. Anything else? Well, I just want to say thank you from the bottom of our hearts. You guys have meant a lot to us. So, and I hope the Phillips get to experience that. That's we met with the missionary care team here last week, and they're asking, well, how did Cyprus care for you? And I said, TUGAB. I was like, you guys did everything right, and that meant the world to us, and we deeply appreciate that. So we look forward to seeing you guys around, and I'm not sure where we'll land yet, but we'll be here at Cyprus. So, thank you guys very much.